My wife cheated on me with her boss, and now she's divorcing me over $200, $0 in hidden savings we never knew about, because she secretly transferred everything into her sister's name after our business disaster. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. All started with little things: her phone ringing at odd hours, her suddenly being too busy to spend time together, and her getting more distant like she was already planning her escape. I remember one night, I stayed up late working on some business stuff, and I noticed her phone kept lighting up. It was a message from some guy named Jake, nothing explicit but enough to make my gut tight. She quickly grabbed the phone, turned away, and said she was just talking to a friend about work. Yeah, sure. But then I saw her on her laptop one day, acting nervous, closing windows fast when I walked in. I thought maybe she was hiding something, but I didn't have proof. Still, the feeling gnawed at me. I started paying more attention, small things mostly, but enough to feel like I was losing her. She was suddenly dressing sexier, more flirtatious with her boss, Mark. She'd come home late, smelling of perfume I didn't recognize, and I caught her in a lie about a business trip she was supposedly taking. She told me she was working late at the office, but I found her car parked at Mark's apartment one night after I decided to follow her. That's when I saw her go inside with her purse, and I waited around the block. I saw them kiss, nothing overtly passionate but enough to tell me that something was going on. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. My wife, Lisa, the woman I married 5 years ago, was cheating on me with her boss. It was like all those years of trust shattered in a second. I felt humiliated, furious, and completely betrayed. How could she lie to me every day? How could she pretend everything was fine? I was devastated, but I knew I had to confront her. The next day, I came home early from work, my mind racing. I found her in the bedroom, packing her bags. She looked surprised, then annoyed, like I was interrupting her big plan. I asked her outright, "Are you cheating on me with Mark?" Her eyes flickered for a second, and then she scoffed, rolling her eyes like I was some paranoid fool. "God, you're so insecure. It's not what you think. You're overreacting." She everything, even when I showed her the evidence, the text messages, the late-night calls, the hotel receipts. She kept lying, saying it was all a mistake, that Mark was just helping her with her career, nothing more. But I knew better. I could see the guilt in her eyes, and I could see her trying to spin her way out of it. The worst part was, I felt like I was losing my mind. How did I get here? I thought we had a solid life, a good marriage. We had money, stability, plans for the future. But in a matter of weeks, everything was falling apart. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies, and I didn't know how to save myself. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial too. I started digging into our joint accounts, trying to piece everything together. That's when I discovered something even more shocking. She'd been hiding a secret stash of money, over $200, $0, tucked away in her sister's name. She had transferred the money out of our joint account after our business went south, an investment disaster that nearly wiped us out. She told me she was saving for a rainy day, but I found out she'd secretly moved it all into her sister's account, not telling me a thing. It was like she was planning her escape long before I even suspected anything. I couldn't believe she'd been lying about everything: her affair, the money, her whole life. She'd been sneaking around, cheating, hiding cash, and now she was talking about divorcing me because I supposedly couldn't provide enough anymore. All I kept thinking was, how did I miss all this? How could I have been so blind? I loved her, and I thought she loved me. But now I saw her for what she really was: a liar, a cheat, someone who was willing to destroy us for her own benefit. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I just knew that I was going to let her walk away with everything she'd hidden, not without a fight. After discovering the hidden money and realizing how deep her betrayal went, I felt like I was hit by a freight train. The shock was overwhelming, but the anger started to take over. How could she do this? How could she lie to me for years, pretend everything was perfect, and then just walk away with a secret stash of our hard-earned savings? I spent the next few days in a daze, going over everything in my head, trying to piece together how I missed all the signs. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time, I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up and accuse her without proof, especially when she was so good at lying. One night, I decided to do some digging into her phone and emails. I wanted to see if I could find anything else that confirmed her affair or other secrets. I remember sitting in the dark, fingers trembling as I scrolled through her messages. That's when I saw a string of texts between her and Mark, more than just flirtation. They were talking about meeting up, about getting away, and even plans to take a vacation together once she left me. The words made my stomach turn. It was clear she was planning to leave, and she was using her affair and her hidden money as leverage. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her run off with everything, especially the money she'd secretly transferred. I started looking into her sister. I remembered that had always been the good girl, the one who was easy to manipulate. I found out that had a small business, an online boutique, and I decided to pay her a visit. I needed to see if I could get some answers. When I talked to, she acted surprised, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. I told her I knew about the money transfer and asked her if she knew what Lisa was planning. She hesitated, then admitted that Lisa had been talking about leaving and hiding their assets for months. That's when I realized I was dealing with a full-blown betrayal on multiple levels. Lisa was not just cheating, she was planning to cut me out completely, with the help of her sister. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I decided I needed legal advice. I contacted a divorce attorney, and I laid out everything I had discovered. I knew I had to get a grip on the situation before she managed to transfer or hide any more money. The lawyer told me I had a strong case, especially since I could prove the transfer of assets and her affair with Mark. But I also knew that the emotional toll was worse than any financial loss. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up the act, acting innocent, denying everything, calling me paranoid. She told me I was overreacting, that Mark was just a mentor, that the money was just a savings account, and that her affair was just a mistake she was trying to fix. I couldn't believe her lies. Every word she uttered felt like a slap in the face. I was furious that she thought she could fool me, that she could just walk away from everything she'd done. I was starting to realize that my marriage was over, but I wasn't going to let her take everything and leave me with nothing. I had to find a way to stop her. The thing was, I also felt a strange sense of sadness. I had loved her once. I had trusted her. Now all I felt was betrayal and a burning desire for justice. I started to plan my next move, how to confront her with everything I knew, how to protect what was rightfully mine, and how to make sure she didn't get away with stealing my future. The more I thought about it, the more clear it became that she was trying to leave me with nothing. No money, no house, nothing. But I wasn't going to let her do that. I was going to fight for what was mine and make her pay for what she'd done. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. I was prepared for a fight both legally and emotionally. But I also knew one thing for sure. I was done trusting her. Lisa had shown her true colors, and I was not going to be again. I needed to gather evidence, get my ducks in a row, and prepare for the war that was coming. Because if she thought she could just walk out and leave me with nothing, she had another thing coming. The more I dug into her affairs and hidden assets, the clearer it became how much she'd been planning her escape. It was like peeling an onion, layer after layer of lies, manipulation, and deception. I started noticing small things that I'd overlooked before. Her suddenly refusing to sign certain documents, claiming she was too busy or not feeling well. But I knew better now. I had her texts, her emails, and even her bank statements. She'd been transferring money into her sister's account for months, claiming it was a favor or savings, but I knew it was a way to hide her assets. Over $200, $0 gone without a trace, just like that. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. We started out with so much hope, building a life together, trusting each other with everything. And now, I was staring at a future where she was trying to take everything I'd worked for, and I was left with nothing but betrayal and heartbreak. I knew I had to act fast, before she managed to completely wipe us out and disappear. I met with my lawyer the very next day. We went over all the evidence and he confirmed what I already suspected. Lisa had a strong case for divorce, but I had a solid claim to the assets she'd hidden. We discussed how to freeze her accounts, trace the transfer of funds, and prepare for a legal battle. I remember feeling a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had proof, and anger because she'd been so cold, so calculating. She'd lied to my face for years, and now she was trying to walk away with my money, my future, everything. One night I decided I needed to confront her directly. I called her and told her I knew everything, about her affair with Mark, about the money transfer, about her plans to leave. I told her I wasn't going to let her get away with it. She laughed, that bitchy laugh she always had when she thought she was in control. She said I was just being paranoid, that she loved me, and this was all a big misunderstanding. She even had the nerve to say I was losing it and that I needed help. I told her I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. If she wanted to walk out, she'd have to do it legally, and she'd have to explain what she'd done with the money. That's when she snapped. She accused me of being paranoid, of trying to control her, of ruining her life. She yelled that I was just jealous because Mark was better than me and that she deserved happiness too. The way she said it made my blood boil. She was so good at twisting everything around, making herself the victim, even as she plotted her escape. I could see her eyes darting around, trying to find a way out, trying to come up with another lie to cover her tracks. I knew I had to stay calm, but inside I was seething. I wanted to shake her and scream that I knew the truth, that I saw through her lies. In that moment, I realized I couldn't keep playing her game. I had to get serious. I started documenting every conversation, every lie, every suspicious transfer. I even hired a private investigator to follow her and confirm her movements. The more I learned, the more I saw how deeply she'd planned this. She'd been talking about leaving me for months, secretly building her new life while pretending everything was fine. It was like waking up from a nightmare, but I knew I had to face it head on. I also started reaching out to friends and family, trying to get support and advice. It was humiliating to admit I'd been, but I knew I couldn't do this alone. My closest friends told me to stay strong, to protect myself and my assets, and to prepare for the fight of my life. They said she was a bitch for doing this, and I agreed. But beneath all that anger, I also felt a strange sadness. I had loved her once. I had believed in us. Now that trust was shattered, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I couldn't help but wonder how someone could be so cold and calculating. How she could betray everything we'd built, lie, cheat, and then try to leave with a fortune that wasn't hers to take. It made me question everything about our marriage, about who she really was. I kept telling myself I'd be okay, that I'd come out of this stronger, but deep down I knew I was devastated. Still, I wasn't going down without a fight. I was determined to get justice, no matter what it took. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I handed over all the evidence to my lawyer. We filed for divorce, and I also initiated a freeze on her bank accounts and the assets we knew she'd hidden. The moment I did that, I could see her panic. She started throwing tantrums, calling me paranoid, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. But I had the proof, texts, bank statements, the transfer records, and I wasn't about to back down. Every day I felt a mix of adrenaline and dread, knowing she was probably frantically trying to find a way to hide even more money or come up with some new lie. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financial history. I found out she'd been funneling money into her sister's account, then using that to buy a new house and pay off debts we didn't even know existed. I couldn't believe how calculated everything was. She'd been planning her exit for months, maybe longer. It was like she'd been building her new life behind my back while pretending everything was fine. I kept thinking about the things we'd shared, the plans we'd made, and how she betrayed all of that for her own greed and desire to cheat. One day, I caught wind that she was meeting with her sister to finalize some legal arrangements. I hired the pie to follow her again, and I was right. Their meetings were about transferring more money, trying to hide assets, and figuring out how to keep her new life secret. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast. I pushed the lawyer to get a court order to seize her assets and to subpoena all her bank records. I also started preparing for a custody battle over our house and any remaining assets. I knew she was trying to pull a fast one, but I was determined to stop her. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. She showed up at my house one afternoon looking furious, her face pale but her eyes sharp. She told me she was done with the marriage, that she was leaving and taking everything. I looked straight at her and said, "You're not taking a damn thing. I know about your affair, about the money, about the lies. You've been planning this for months, and I'm not going to let you walk away with my life's work." She scoffed, tried to deny everything, but I threw the evidence on the table: screenshots, bank statements, the transfer receipts. Her face twisted in rage. She started yelling at me, calling me paranoid and jealous. She said I was crazy for accusing her of everything, that I was ruining her reputation. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I told her she had no right to take what wasn't hers, that I'd fight her in court and expose every lie she told. I warned her that if she tried to run or hide any more assets, I'd have her criminally investigated. She looked at me like I was some crazy man, but I knew she was scared. She realized I wasn't backing down. That night I sat alone, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I thought about everything: her lies, the money she'd stolen, the betrayal. I felt betrayed, not just as a husband, but as a man who had trusted his partner. I wondered how she could be so selfish, so manipulative. The emotional pain was intense. I loved her, but I hated what she did to us. I also knew I couldn't turn back now. I had to stay strong, keep fighting, and protect what little was left of my dignity and my future. I couldn't let her destroy everything I'd worked so hard for, not without a fight. I was determined to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and sleepless nights. I was finally getting a clearer picture of just how much Lisa had been lying and manipulating behind my back. The court order to freeze her assets was in place, but I knew she'd try to find a way around it. She was resourceful, and I was prepared for her to pull some stunt at the last minute. I kept my lawyer updated, and we worked on building a solid case for the divorce, especially over the hidden money and the affair with Mark. What really pushed me over the edge was discovering that she had been secretly transferring money into her sister's account, almost right up until the day she left. I had the bank records, transfers of large sums done late at night with no explanation. I felt sick. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft, a full-on scam to wipe us out and start fresh. I couldn't believe I had trusted her for so long. I'd always considered her the responsible one, the stable one. Turns out, she was the one secretly planning her escape while I was obliviously working our business into the ground. One afternoon, I decided to confront her again. She showed up unexpectedly, her eyes filled with anger and desperation. She told me she was leaving for good and that I'd never see her again. I looked at her and said, "You've lied, cheated, and stolen from me. You think you can just walk away with my money, my house, and my life? Not a chance." I laid out everything I'd uncovered: her affair, the transfers, the plan to disappear. She tried to deny everything, but I had proof. Her face twisted in rage, but I could see the fear behind her eyes. She knew she was losing control. I told her she was done playing her games. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I warned her that if she tried to leave with any more assets, I'd have her criminally investigated for fraud and theft. I also made it clear that I was fighting for full custody of our house and what remained of our assets. She sneered, saying I was just jealous, that Mark was better than me, that I was a loser. Honestly, her words just made me more determined. I knew I had to keep going to fight for what was rightfully mine. That night I sat alone in the house, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and resolve. I couldn't believe how much I'd been. I'd loved her once, trusted her with everything, and now I was trying to piece my life back together after the biggest betrayal I'd ever experienced. The emotional toll was heavy: anger, sadness, frustration, swirling inside me. But I also knew I had to stay strong. I wasn't going to let her walk away with our savings, our house, or my dignity. I had to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. I realized that this whole nightmare had taught me something about trust and betrayal. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, but I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones who hurt you the most. Lisa's selfishness and greed had almost destroyed us, but I was determined not to let her win. I was going to fight for what's mine, expose her lies, and start rebuilding from the wreckage. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, and I was ready for that. Whatever it took, I was going to get justice. The final weeks of this chaos have been a whirlwind, and honestly, I feel like I've been through hell and back. The court hearings, the depositions, the constant back and forth with lawyers. Every day felt like another battle to protect what little was left. I managed to get a court order to seize the remaining assets, and the judge sided with me on most of it, especially after I presented all the evidence of her lies and the secret transfers. Seeing her face when the judge approved the freezing order was a small victory. Her smugness finally cracked, replaced by panic. Lisa tried to play the victim, of course. She claimed she was just trying to start fresh, that I was trying to ruin her, and that she had no choice but to hide her money because I was controlling. It was laughable if it weren't so infuriating. I knew her game now. She lied about everything, used her charm to manipulate her sister, and planned her escape for months, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I had everything documented, every lie, every transfer, every secret meeting. I was ready for her to finally face the consequences. The divorce was finalized last month. I got primary custody of the house and most of the assets that hadn't been hidden or transferred. She got a fraction of what she was trying to steal, and honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over, well, almost. The emotional scars are still there, but I've started to rebuild. I've cut all contact with her, blocked her from my social media, and focused on moving forward. I've learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting yourself when someone you love turns out to be the enemy. Looking back, I realize how much this whole experience changed me. I used to think marriage was about loyalty and honesty, but I now understand that sometimes people hide their true selves behind a mask. Lisa's greed and selfishness were always there, just under the surface. I wish I'd seen it sooner, but I guess you can't always spot a snake until it bites you. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs: late nights, secretive behavior, unexplained money transfers. Protect yourself legally and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. The truth may be painful, but it's better than living in a lie. And above all, remember that you're stronger than you think. I never thought I'd be the guy to go through this, but I made it through. I'm rebuilding my life, and I know I'll come out better on the other side. Betrayal is a brutal thing, but it also teaches you who you really are. I've learned to stand up for myself, to value honesty, and to never let anyone steal my peace again. Life's not about clinging to what's gone. It's about moving forward, wiser and more cautious, but also ready to find happiness again. That's what I'm doing now. And I hope anyone else facing similar heartbreak finds the strength to do the same.